Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And we've got an exciting new event to try here, and hopefully it goes well for us all. We are playing Historical Board Gaming's Global War 1939. We're using the new Ultra rules set, and there's new pieces and there's new rules. But it is a fantastic game, and this is meant to showcase what this game can really do. So there are a lot of interesting things in this game, a lot of options that you can utilize or you can ignore. It's totally up to you as the player. Now, as we look at the map, we can see that there are lots of white pieces out here. These are strict neutrals, but you can absolutely invade them if you want. You don't have to play nice. You can go after them. You can see here's Germany, of course. France is still in French control, as is their navy and all of their overseas holdings. Poland remains free, and the Axis miners have yet to be activated. So the new thing we're going to try is you, the viewer, get to have a vote on how you would like this game to proceed. So you really personally have no skin in the game, so you can come up with the craziest ideas you want. They have to apply to the rules, and I believe that the Ultra rule set, if it's not available on HBG right now, I believe it will be very shortly. And you can also use the 7.2 rules, because overall those things really haven't changed too much. The overall scope of the game hasn't changed that much. More of the details have. So, you have some things you get to have a vote on as to how this game proceeds. The first one is the overarching Allied objective. Are we going to try to disrupt the Axis in Europe more? Or are we going to try to keep the Japanese Empire in check in the Pacific and the Asian theaters? So you get to put a vote in on that. There's also, do we try to hold Cairo? Now, holding Cairo is very key in this game, but it really depends on what Germany is doing. So if Germany is putting a lot of pressure, building transports and bulking up their navy to keep Sea Lion on the table, pouring money into Cairo isn't very possible, and the Italians might see an opportunity. There's a few other things. Should the Brits be building in their overseas factories? There are colonial factories all over the place that they can build in. They can build in Calcutta, and they can build in Sydney. And, should they be spending money overseas? So these are some questions for the Allies. Should the Americans focus on securing the Atlantic? Or should they focus on the Pacific? Or should they split their efforts? Should they lend lease to China? Or is it just money you're flushing down the toilet, as the Japanese have so much more stuff that they can bring to bear? Now, that's from the Allied perspective. Now, from the Axis perspective, the Axis have some opportunities. The first thing is the Japanese Tora Tora Tora. All right? This is where they can conduct 3 sneak attacks, and they are devastating, especially if you can get the American Navy involved, because for each of these Tora 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 dice, whomever they attack will be unable to defend themselves on round 1. And if it's the American fleet that you attack, they are -2 for the rest of the battle. So that can really hurt. And then the Germans also have their Barbarossa die. I don't have it on the table right now. So you could decide which territory is going to be the Operation Barbarossa attack, because that is a very important attack as well. Cannot be attacked by the Russians on that turn. So the Germans, if they come in and let's say they actually take Leningrad, the Russian forces are not able to attack it on that turn. So you'd have some say in that. There's a few other things that you can have a say in, and I'll bring them up as we go along. There will be options for purchasing units or purchasing factories. Should we try to defend Calcutta? Will the Japanese try to take Calcutta? will the Japanese do a J1? So right on the first turn, just everything goes. And that actually works out okay in this game. All right, it works out okay. Now, it does inch the Americans closer to being in the war, but it doesn't bring them right into the war. So if they could do a J1 on everybody except America, America still might not be in the war for 3 or 4 rounds, and by then Japan could have all of this territory. So is that something that perhaps Japan should do? So these are things that I would like you to have a little bit of say in. We're going to start off right off the bat. What should the Allies focus on? Getting the Axis in Europe or going after the Axis in the Pacific? What should be the focus of the Allies? And when I say the Allies, of course, I mean America, but they don't really have much to do for the first few rounds. But if you say, let's go after the Japanese, then the British will be building in Calcutta and Sydney. And they'll be adding to what the Far East Command and Anzac are building. So you'll be building 4 units in this area instead of just 3. So if you want me to do that, I'll do that. Okay? So that's the first thing. Tell me which side of the board we should look to for the Allies. Focus on Europe or focus on the Pacific. After that, depending on how the rolling goes, depending on how the game is going, I'll bring up some more choices. And I'll say, okay, for the next turn, should I focus on this? Should Germany fight to gain control of the Atlantic? Right? Should Germany really try to do that? So if you believe that Germany should buy subs, and subs are only $5 in this game, should Germany put money into winning the Battle of the Atlantic? And that is a very good strategy if it works, because then it keeps the British and the Americans and the Canadians off the continent, which allows you to really pressure the Soviet Union a lot more effectively. So that is something that you will have to let me know what you would like me to do with those units. There are a few things that are somewhat given, that things that you should do as the Axis or the Allies. I will not take these as a natural course of action if you talk me out of it. If you say, you know what, Hilltop, we want you to try this crazy thing, or we want you to try that crazy thing, I will absolutely do what I'm told by the majority. If it's a tie, I will roll a die. And so if 3 people say do this and 3 other people say do that, I'll roll a die on film and say, okay, these people said I should go Atlantic, these people said I should go Pacific, so we're going to roll a die, and that will judge, or that will tell me how to proceed with the game. So hopefully we can have some fun doing this. It'll be a little bit of a slower pace, of course, because I'll need to get your responses to some of these questions. Now, the overarching question, of course, is Pacific or Atlantic, or Europe or Asia, if you will. But then going along, there'll be some key things, like should I focus fire with this big battle group I have? You know, should the Italians take a poke at Cairo with what they can bring? Is that worth it? All right. So, get ready for some fun here. This is a fantastic game, this Global War 39, and I look forward to your input to see what we should do to get things going. So I'm just posting this video right now. Today is Saturday, November the 25th. So I'll wait for, a few responses. I'm not going to wait too terribly long. And then we'll roll out turn number 1, which will be Germany and their first and second impulse. Just so you know, if you're not really familiar with the game, the Germans get to do 2 attacks in a row with all of their units. So they'll do an attack, do a non-combat move, place their build, and then do another attack and non-combat move. They won't have another buy-in builds, though. So they tend to end up with about $70 to $80 by the end of round 1, including what they get from the French. Okay, Poland is usually taken, the 2 territories, Warsaw and West Poland. The Russians can or cannot take East Poland, depending on what they want to do. If the Russians don't take East Poland on round 1, the Germans can take it. And if you're wondering what happens to all this beautiful French stuff, they got quite the navy, it all gets rolled for. 1 to a 6, and the territories will go Vichy, 7 to 12, and they go Free French. and there's a little bit of a different breakdown for the boats, but it's essentially the same thing. It's just a chance that someone will get it, and maybe you don't want to put in a vote until you see who gets all the boats, but the vast majority of the boats get scuttled is typically what happens. All right. Well, thanks so much for watching, folks, and hope your run up to Christmas here is going well. Get your shopping done early, and yeah, don't be that last minute shopper that I always am. All right. Take care, folks. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing your votes as to what we should do with all this Axis power. Take care.